Hey guys, it's Nailbiter, and I've got another World of Tanks commentary here. This is a game I had with the T-10 on Himmelsdorf, and I wanted to try something slightly different with this video. This replay isn't really anything special in and of itself, but one of the things I've felt for a while about Himmelsdorf is that people tend to overvalue the hill, and I think this replay is actually a pretty good example of why I think that, so I wanted to focus on that for this video. I used to almost always go hill on this map if I was playing anything like a medium tank or a fast heavy. But over time, there were two issues I often found I had when I went to that area of the map. One is just the fact that it's relatively slow getting to that area. If you're playing the 7-8 line or the 2-3 line on this map, you're pretty much always going to be in position and engaging the enemy team before the tanks that are going hill. And the problem I had with that was that there would often be times where things would start to happen on the map before I was able to have any impact. And generally that's something that I try to avoid. I want to be impacting the map or the game as much as possible. As an example, say I'm halfway up the hill when I see the enemy team is pushing down the 7-8 line and my team only has one or two tanks there, so I think we're probably going to lose that area of the map. Even if the enemy team has sent nothing to the hill, it's going to be faster for them to push through the 7-8 line and get to our base than it will be for us to push the hill and get to their base. So before I've even seen anything on the hill, I'm already kind of forced to react to something else going on the map. And a lot of times if you have multiple tanks going hill, people will react differently to what's going on the map. Some will just push straight through, some will go back, and that can often leave your team in a really bad position. The second issue is, while you can get good shots from the hill into the middle portion of the map, into the courtyard area, you're otherwise pretty cut off from the rest of the map. So there'd be a lot of times where, even if my team won the hill, there wasn't really anything I could do about what was happening on the rest of the map, and that kind of leaves you in this awkward position where, you don't want to leave that area because it's kind of slow to relocate off the hill, but at the same time, if you're not being productive and, again, not having any impact from the hill, then, you're just kind of stuck in a bad position. So anyway, all that's to explain why I rarely play the hill anymore. I don't think it's necessarily a bad position to go some of the time, but I do think it's an overrated area of the map, and you'll definitely see some of the factors that I mentioned come into play in this game. So I'll get this replay started. From the south spawn in Himmelsdorf, I often like to go to G3 at the start of the game and try to spot any enemy tanks heading to the 2-3 line. But this game is kind of a weird matchup. There are 3 arty on each team and 4 light tanks on each team, so just right there, that's almost half the enemy team that I don't really feel like I have to worry about really brawling with, or to be afraid of for that matter. And then on top of that, just in the first 30 seconds here, you can see my team is kind of deployed a little unusually. We have our T-49 platoon going hill, but then the rest of the team is going to the west of the map. So when I saw that, I decided instead of going to G3, I'm just going to be super aggressive and push straight down the 2 line. I did stop there to take a shot on that EBR, which honestly may not have been the best idea. Part of the goal with pushing down the 2 line is to surprise the enemy team and give them as little time to respond as possible, but I did hit the shot at least. And so now I'm just going to push straight down the 2 line. And it looks like the 277 on my team is also pushing down the 3 line, so I feel like I can afford to be pretty aggressive here and just keep pushing basically until I run into an enemy tank. The T-49s on the hill have lit a few enemy tanks, and it looks like the enemy has actually already, from what we've seen, they have more tanks on the hill than we do. So that means we're going to have an advantage on this side of the map, and obviously the enemy sent nothing here to the west. So we're already pushing into the enemy base. So I'm just going to push up past this 277. The Centurion is being pretty passive back there. He's trying to back up, so I'm just going to push forward. I do actually get a shot on him on the move, which is nice. And the T-100 light tank in front of me got on the cap circle. So we're not even 2 minutes into this game, and already we're putting cap pressure on the enemy team. Since I wasn't really sure yet whether the enemy team had sent any tanks back to defend their cap, I decided to push forward a little bit and get another shot into that Centurion. But then the Type 4 Heavy gets lit behind him, and we spot the AMX-30 coming back from the hill. And I have no idea how that shot on the already missed. But there are a few tanks back here to defend, and obviously I don't want to push in and get myself killed, so I'm going to fall back. And the 277 and I can just sit on this corner and force them to come to us. Meanwhile, looking at the minimap, a few of the enemy tanks have pushed through to our base from the hill, but since we already have cap pressure on them, they can't really afford to try to counter race us. And their team is kind of split here. You can see there are the 3 tanks that have pushed down from the hill toward our base. There are a few tanks that are still left on the hill, and then there are some tanks that have fallen back and are trying to defend their cap. So we've put the enemy team in a really bad position, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It looks like a lot of the enemy team went hill, but our 2-line push got through and put pressure on them before they could push through the hill and put pressure on us. And that forced them to react to what we were doing, and obviously, since this is a random battle, they're not going to be very coordinated about how they react. So that Object 260 and T-95 FV that pushed down the hill into our base didn't get any support, and my team has already taken them out. So the enemy team is down. They're down 3 tanks, they're down a couple of tier 10s, and at this point, the 277 and I don't really have any intentions of actually capping out. We're actually outnumbered here, but our team has such a huge advantage elsewhere on the map that it's really just a matter of holding while the rest of the map gets cleaned up. We don't need to put cap pressure on anymore. And obviously, the enemy team won the hill, but it turned out to be pretty irrelevant in this game. The enemy Foch 155 has been on the hill this entire time pretty much, and he may have gotten a couple shots of damage off, but really he probably had no chance to do anything about what was going on the rest of the map. So anyway, there isn't too much left of this game. The 277 and I are just trying to survive until the rest of our team is able to reinforce us. I was trying to shield the 277 a bit there when I saw the Kranwagen push around that corner, but fortunately we were able to take out the Kranwagen before he even got a shot off, and then when the SDB pushes in, I can just follow right behind him. So this game is basically over. It was a really quick game, only a little over 4 minutes have gone by, and I'll fast forward a little bit here as I just sit on cap the rest of the game while my team chases around that EBR. But anyway, I suppose part of this replay is also that it shows the power of pushing down the 2-3 line. I don't think people do that often enough, but it can be a really strong move, especially if you're in a platoon. And I find a lot of times teams are completely unprepared to deal with it, like the enemy team was in this game. So it's worth giving a shot at some point. But anyway, that's the end of this replay, and now I'll just quickly show you guys the post-game stats. And here are the post-game stats. As I mentioned before, this game wasn't anything special. I ended up with about 3.6k damage, and I did get top experience on my team, so, a solid but pretty average game, I'd say. But I thought it'd be worth showing in conjunction with talking about why I think Himmelsdorf Hill is overvalued. And I definitely think this game kind of demonstrates what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. The enemy team committed a bunch of tanks to the hill, and even though my team had pretty much no resistance there, with the way the battle unfolded in other areas of the map, winning the hill didn't do the enemy team any good. And, even though this game is a bit of an extreme case just because of how quickly the game developed, even in slower games, I often find that, my team might win the hill but still lose the game just because they aren't really able to do anything once they've taken that area. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary and found it interesting or helpful in some way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.